Paranormal Dimensions is a regular feature on Mondays on the Paranormal UK radio network. Any opinions or comments made by any guest are their own, and they do not necessarily reflect any of the presenters or network's opinions.
Since the beginning of time, people have argued about the existence of ghosts. They've been called variously wraiths, specters, phantoms, apparitions, shadows, or shades. But everyone agrees that if there are such things as ghosts, they are the souls of dead persons haunting living persons.
Good day to you. This is Sir Patrick Moore, and you're listening to the Paranormal UK Radio Network, the UK's biggest paranormal radio network, and this is Paranormal Dimensions with David Young.
Hello and welcome to another show. Thank you for the introduction, Sir Patrick. Thank you for all the messages that have been coming in. Now I've got to send out a very special thank you to Bish, UFO Hunter, otherwise known as Simon. He sent me a handmade gift. It's a UFO on a wooden base, and it's like an abduction of a cow. The cow's being drawn up into a beam of light. It's excellent. Thank you very much, Simon. I really appreciate it, and it will take pride of place on my desk. I love it. Thank you. Okay, for anything else, any other messages you'd like to send me, you can always email me at davidyoung2qn@yahoo.co.uk. That's davidyoung2qn@yahoo.co.uk. Okay, on to today's guest. It's Tami Urbanek. She's got a few books out on Amazon. Silent Whispers 1 and 2 are probably the most well known. Now, when Tami began working with the public as a medium, she never envisioned how her path would change. Moving beyond working with people's spirit guides, deceased children began arriving to share their own shocking experiences. These children revealed the horrific torture and government scientific experiments that ultimately led to their death. With a heavy heart, Tami listened to their stories and helped them to feel loved and safe in order to cross over to the other side. Tami, along with 2 other women, began travelling to different locations within the United States to assist deceased children who were caught in a cycle of pain. Little did they know that they would eventually begin attracting the attention of extraterrestrials. It became obvious the ETs were also invested in the experiments, and they would attempt to thwart the efforts of these 3 women. Silent Whispers would challenge readers' belief system and perhaps lead them to question the reality that surrounds them. So, let's welcome Tami Urbanek to the show. Hello Tami, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's a great pleasure to welcome you to Paranormal Dimensions. I've waited a while for this show. I think we arranged this probably a couple of months ago, didn't we? And yeah. It's amazing how time sort of goes quickly, but it goes slowly at the same time. But anyway, how are you? Are you doing okay?
Yes, I'm doing wonderful here in Colorado. Beautiful sky.
Yeah, it's actually a little bit sunny here in the UK as well. It's been cold, but it's still... Mind you, I know what Colorado can be cold as well, can't it?
Yeah. At this time of year, it's always a crapshoot.
Yeah. I think is it Colorado Springs you live near?
Very close to Colorado Springs, yes.
Ah, right. I remember getting a speeding ticket just outside of there. But anyway, so we won't go to that. Anyway, Tami, I'm very interested in your books. I think, is it 3 you've written now?
4 technically.
4 technically. Okay, I've got 3 of them, but I know your latest one came out November 2019. Is that right?
My latest one just came out actually a couple of weeks ago.
Ah, right. That's why I'm behind the times then. So what's the title of your latest book?
My newest one is All Things Within, A Discovery of Love. It's more of a collection of essays.
I see, right, okay. So, because I sort of, I've got Silent Whispers, book 1 and 2, which is the one I'm talking about. It's 24th of November 2019 it came out.
Yes.
All very fascinating. I don't know where you'd like to start. I mean, do you want to go back to how things developed with you in your early days?
Well, I grew up in a very spiritually open, aware family. And my father is a medium. He's a different type of medium. He's called a direct medium, but he has been a medium for, I guess, 40 years now, maybe close to 41. And my ability as a medium began developing probably close to 15 years ago.
Right. I'm not quite sure what a direct medium means, or maybe it means something different over here. Could you explain what that means?
Some people might call it channeling.
I see. Right, yeah.
So it might look more like that, whereas my work as a medium is, I'll hear the non-physical and then I can repeat it out loud.
I see, right. I know you've done an awful lot of work helping children, haven't you, passed over? Yes,
right before my 40th birthday, which was almost 7 years ago, things really began changing, and a little after my 40th birthday, deceased children started coming to me talking about how they had been abducted, tortured.
Oh my God, yeah.
Experiments, science experiments, that type of thing, and I started writing it down.
Oh, I see. I know you had quite in your first book, Loving Connor, you had quite a rough start out, didn't you, really? And I think that's when the children started coming to you, wasn't it, in those days?
The book Loving Connor starts off when I was 18 and I was in my first marriage, which, as you probably read, was not a healthy relationship. So I became a single mother very young, and it was later in my daughter's adolescence that she became pregnant with Connor, and we came to understand that there were some issues that we needed to work with prior to his birth, which we did. There were still some challenges after his birth, but I believe nothing like it would have been had we not done the work before his birth with his consciousness, his soul, so to speak.
Okay, let me move on to your second book, which was Silent Whispers.
Mm-hmm.
And what one thinks is crazy, another thinks is true.
Right.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the book is, depending on the perspective a person has when they read the book, they may think this is crazy, this is lunatic, who would take children and experiment on them to their death and lie about it. But anyone can research MK Ultra, which was a CIA driven program back in the 50s, 60s, 70s. It became public knowledge. I think some documents were leaked, if I recall. And as a result of that, there was an outrage, and Congress ordered MK Ultra to stop. And, they said, okay, we will. But they didn't. They just went deeper underground and continued experimenting on children, adults, but the ones I focused on were the children coming to me talking about what had been done to them, sometimes where they were from, and sometimes how they died.
I see. Now, are we talking about abducted children, or?
Yes. Most of them were abducted. There were a few children who told me that their families had sold them, whether it was a biological family or a foster family. In some cases, they were just taken from the foster family because nobody would care. So a lot of the kids that were taken were, I would say, lower in the socioeconomic status, but not all of them. There were some teenagers who wouldn't have fallen in that demographic.
I see. God. It's really scary, isn't it? I mean, you do hear of so many children going missing in all over the world, actually, and you kind of wonder where these children end up. And obviously, you sort of described an area where they do end up. And do you think it's still going on?
Absolutely. Some of the children who came to me or rather they died during the Second World War, during the Holocaust. And, we all know, anyone who's read history knows that the Nazis experimented on children, and adults, of course. And anyone who has also read history knows that the United States brought over Nazi scientists to continue their work on the space program, among other things. So the information's out there, but it's not widely talked about, but it's available right now anyway to research. So some children came to me from that time during the Holocaust all the way through to into the 2000s. And, some of it was mind control. Some children were forced to harm animals. Some children were forced to view images, hear loud sounds. Some were experimented on with medications, a variety of different things. Some were, their bone marrow was taken to do some tests on the immune system, just a variety of medical experiments and mind control.
Right. Do you believe Satanism was included as well?
I don't know. I did not encounter those types of stories from the children. It could have been, but I did not hear those stories.
No, so we do hear quite a few stories of Satanism going on, and that's where some of these disappearing children end up. But as I say, that's not your expertise, shall we say?
Yes, that would not be my area.
No. And now also, you do communicate with extraterrestrial life as well.
Yes. That in Silent Whispers, both books, 1 and 2, later in the book of 1, it became obvious that it was not just the governments taking children and doing experiments, but it was also, for the most part, the Greys.
Right. Okay. Now, I do hear quite a lot about the Greys. Now, in your knowledge, are they connected with the reptilians?
It is, now I can't say I've ever sat down and had a conversation with them.
No.
So I can just say what I've learned, and that they both have their own, both species have their own agendas and their own purpose for experimenting. They're not here to just cause chaos. They have a goal in mind. So the Greys don't have emotions. They have zero emotions. They're highly intelligent, and very intellectual, but there's no emotions. And that is my understanding. At least one of the things that they are in search for is understanding how emotions work in humans. As far as the reptilians, I'm not too familiar with them.
Okay. Well, it's just I've heard from others that they do actually work together. For what reason or for what purpose, I don't know. But
they could. They very well could.
Yeah. Okay. I don't quite know where to take this now. Could you tell us some stories about what your experiences have been with some of these children?
With some of the children, it started off with them coming into my home and talking with me, and that's when I began writing it down. And then it became obvious that I, along with 2 other women, needed to start traveling throughout the country, assisting children who were kind of stuck in a particular physical location, a geographic location, rather. So my friend Andrea, and then my relative, she's my aunt, technically, but she's only a few years older than me, we began traveling. And we started off in Montauk, New York, we went to Camp Hero, which is very creepy, and ended up talking with one of the groundskeepers, and he shared a story with us, which was interesting. And then from there, we went out to New Mexico a few times, We went out to Mount Shasta in California, Las Vegas, quite a few places over the years. And we needed to use our intuition to figure out which location we would go to and then where we would walk. We did a lot of walking. And we would encounter children and help them cross over.
I see. I mean, how many children would you guess you've helped? Or is that a difficult question?
I would have to guess in the hundreds. So every time, counting the children who came to me in my home, which would, before we even started the trips, and then in between each trips, they were still coming to me. And then on the trips, I would say on average, we encountered 10 to 12 children, and I've been told that there were others who crossed over aside from the ones that we directly connected with. So, I would have to guess in the hundreds.
Wow, that's, I suppose you must keep records of it all, of each, what do you call it, a case or whatever?
As I was doing the writing, yes. So, almost every case I encountered is actually in the books.
Yeah, I know. As I say, I have skimmed through it, but I haven't read them all properly yet. But so, I mean, do you deal with anything to do with reincarnation? Have you had that sort of kind of experiences from any of these cases that you've dealt with?
Not from these cases. I'm well aware of reincarnation and how it works and what happens after you cross over, or what happens when you pass and then cross over. But as far as the children are concerned, no, reincarnation didn't come up.
Oh, right. Okay.
What did happen, though, is once we got to the part where it wasn't just the military involved with abducting and experimenting on children, it was the Greys for the most part, but some reptilians as well, I began getting harassed by the Greys. They were coming into my house. At first they were just menacing, they were trying to scare me by coming in. I could feel their energy and making noises. When we were in the middle of the night, I would wake up and I would hear something going on downstairs or even in the closet. But it was, as I described in the book, there were a couple of times where they came in and paralyzed me. And one was standing right there, and I had woken up. I had already woken up. I was already looking around the room, and then I was paralyzed, but I was facing in the direction of a Grey. And that was probably the scariest thing that happened.
That's scary. So when you say they enter the house, do they kind of walk through walls like an interdimensional being, or?
Yes, I mean technically nothing is truly solid. Scientists talk about that.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And they can definitely move through what we would call solid objects. And I'm told that's how they do a lot of their abducting. They just take the person through the wall.
I've not had that experience, to my knowledge, anyway. But, I mean, how do you feel about interdimensional beings? Do you feel that there's a lot of dimensions that we deal with? We hear about there's 7 dimensions and everything, but I feel there's a lot more than that.
I have been taught that there are 12 dimensions, and there are 12 realms in each dimension. So this is the 3rd dimension, and then there are 12 realms within the dimension. And then, a lot of people talk about going to the 4th dimension. So some people, they talk about dimensions in the sense of, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to move on to a better dimension. And that's not how it works. Your body, or your energy shifts as you shift. So as you shift consciousness, as you're shifting more towards your soul path, your love, your wisdom, your courage, your soul essence, that's what shifts consciousness. And as your consciousness shifts, it shifts your energy, and that's what changes within the realms that you experience within a dimension.
Yeah. I mean, what about alien civilizations? Have you got any idea of how many alien civilizations have visited this planet?
The teacher that my father is a medium for has stated there are about 64 species that visit the planet right now. That number changes, but right now about 64 species, and but only some of them have a harmful agenda. Some of them are here for the Earth, some of them are here to assist humanity, and some are here for their own agenda.
Wow. I mean, could you explain anything about that, this harmful aspect of it?
Well, the ones who abduct humans, the ones who do the experiments, the ones who want something for their own purpose, their own sake, those would be more of the harmful ones. And then there are ones that I encountered on my trips that I talk about in the book. I just call them the female ETs, the female extraterrestrials. They would be more of ones who want to offer assistance. Right.
Yeah, I mean, what I was trying to get at was, I wondered if there was any other sort of harmful aspects to more, other than sort of abductions. I mean, have you heard anything about? I do hear some stories about some actually feed on humans.
Feed in the sense of taking...
Yeah, usually us for food, basically.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
Ah, okay. It's just one of the things that I've heard about in the past, and I've heard that our governments have got some sort of a deal going on with certain aliens that they can take what they like.
I have heard that, yeah.
As I say, whether there's any truth in it, I don't know. I just wonder if you know anything about it.
Not in terms of food, but some of the children did show me that the Greys were working with the government and very much together in terms of gaining something from the experiments.
Right. So in your way of thinking, the governments know about the Greys and are working with them, yeah?
Absolutely.
And
you probably already know that when Trump was still in office, he signed a COVID relief package in December.
Yeah.
And hidden in that was that the U.S. government has to reveal all unclassified documents on UFOs by the end of next month.
Yeah, I did see that actually. So where do you think that's going to go, or has that been quashed since Biden's been in?
It's been getting released. It's not, of course, on the main news. There are other things that are more important in terms of their perspective. But I have been seeing that some documents have already they started releasing documents right after the COVID relief was signed. They just have to have it completed by the end of May, but they've been releasing it. And so there's a website, I believe it's called Black Vault.
Yeah.
And that guy's been releasing it through the Freedom of Information Act.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll have to put a link to the Black Vault on my Paranormal Dimensions page for anyone that's interested in this show, if people want to come and have a look. So, when you wrote your first book, what made you write your book? Well, did you feel you were going to write a book in the first place, or did it just come to you?
A couple of years after I had already published Loving Connor, I started feeling the urge to write, but I didn't know what to write.
Right.
And my father suggested, write about your resistance. And so I did. I just started writing, even though I didn't know if it would get published, would I delete everything and start over. I just started writing. And I started writing about the process of change that I went through. That is what led to these children coming to me. And that is actually, I left most of that in the book. That's in Silent Whispers, book 1. The process the change that I went through, and then these kids started coming to me. So, yeah, I knew I was going to write something. I just had no clue what, before age 40.
No, I was just wondering, in your younger years, were you actually interested in, what would you call it, the occult, supernatural, ufology, etc.?
Yeah, it's something that I have found interesting for many years. I would say, though, in my 20s, I was more, I was so busy going to college and getting my degrees, working, raising my daughter. I got remarried at age 24. So my life was really, that was my focal point. I became a teacher, building my career there. That was my focus. And then in my 30s, I started changing around 31, 32, where my abilities began developing, where I could hear the non-physical, communicate with them. I didn't have that developed in my 20s. I was too scared at the time. So I needed to work through that fear, and then it began developing early 30s. And then I left teaching when I was 34 and started my self-employed business working with people. Okay.
Now, how do I always kind of try to get to get an understanding as to how spiritual people, spirits, talk to you? How do you see them? Because I know some people, they have different experiences of how they speak to spirit.
Yes, I would say different people who have the medium gene, it's genetic. So different people who have the medium gene they have their own way of doing it. So for me, they talk, and then I repeat. So some people, they get images or they get symbols. I don't get symbols. They'll show me pictures. For example, with the children, they would show me pictures of the experiments and how they died. A lot of that was through pictures, but they also spoke in words. Even if they were in a different language, in a different country, and only knew German, for example, it would just get translated to English as it would go through my brain. And then, I just repeat it out loud, or I write it down.
Is it kind of like a paranormal investigation when you go on these, talking to spirit? I mean, when you go to locations, do you use any sort of instruments? I suppose that's what I'm getting at.
No, we don't have any instruments. The only instruments we use are our intuition and some research we'll usually do ahead of time. But after the initial research, which is usually fairly limited, just our intuition and then paying attention to what we're seeing. And then as soon as we see something, we go in that direction, and then there's usually a child there. For whatever reason, they were always hiding near a bush or hiding near a tree. I'm not sure why. I've never asked, but there was a lot of fear. They carried a lot of fear. They didn't know how to cross over. Sometimes they didn't think they were allowed to cross over. So it was really just connecting with them and helping them understand they can cross over. They won't be chased anymore. They were still experiencing trauma. Right. That was the issue.
So it's kind of a trust issue, I guess, with people. Is that right?
Yeah, really gaining their trust that what we say is true, that there's this light that they can cross over into. And some of them had already seen the light, but they thought it was going to harm them. And for the most part, those children believed that it was because they'd been abducted and by extraterrestrials. So they would associate the light to cross over with the light that ETs used. So they made that painful association, and we needed to gain their trust and help them understand that it was not the same light. So the tools we used was our intuition and then my listening and communication.
I see. So do they actually then, once they pass through that light, do they then understand, because obviously their spiritual person is not the same as their human person, do they then understand everything once they've gone through that light? It's a difficult thing to try and get my head around. You see, it's, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes. So once you have physically passed, you still have your mind, your emotions, your memories, or, well, some of them, not always all of them, but you still have your consciousness. And when you physically pass, if your consciousness is full of fear, then that's, or anger, or depression, or joy, whatever it might be, that's the consciousness that you take with you into the non-physical realm. So after that happens, you always have a choice to cross over. It's never forced on anyone. You cross over. You have your guides. You sometimes have loved ones. There's always someone there to assist you. No one is ever lost or forgotten. But if you are caught up in trauma, like these children were and are, when you're caught up in trauma, you can't see your guides. You can't see these other beings of light who want to assist you. It's literally like they don't exist. And that's where we come in, because they're kind of stuck they're in the non-physical, but they're stuck in a physical realm. They see me, a physical person. They see the other two women I'm with, and they can communicate, but they don't see their own guides. We're also in the non-physical with them. So we help them shift their consciousness so that they can see the assistance that's right there, cross over. After they cross over, they begin receiving assistance. They begin that healing process with their guides. Their guides take it from there and help them understand what happened. They review. They learn whatever it is they need to learn. Without the interference of what was going on in this physical realm.
Yeah. I mean, I've told this story before on here. My wife actually died before I knew her years ago. Because she's got asthma, and she actually died on the way to hospital a couple of times. And she did literally die, apparently. And she said that she saw the light, but she was given a choice as to whether to come back or not. And she chose to come back. Because of some unfinished business. I don't know, maybe that unfinished business was to meet me, I don't know. But so does everyone get a choice?
I've heard that as well, and in fact my father has talked about that as well with his experiences. He's had a couple of near-death experiences, and I wouldn't say that everyone has that option. It depends on their soul pathway, what they need to learn, and the status of their physical body too. Right.
Yeah, she said she was definitely given the choice. But she was going through a tough time as well at the time. Like she went through like a much the same as your sort of previous marriage, I guess. But she chose to come back for a reason, and she had a couple of children as well. But we can't. We just wonder why she chose that. Because she had the choice to go on. But there you go. It was before she knew me anyway. But I just kind of wondered if everyone gets it. But,
I wouldn't say everyone does, because everyone's going to have a different circumstance. But I would say it does happen. Yes.
Yeah. She described this amazing love and light and everything, and warmth. That's how she described it.
Exactly. That's how I have experienced it when I'm working with the child who needs to cross over. That is how it feels to me, and so that's how I describe it to the children as well, so that they feel safe in crossing over.
Yeah, I will say that she did definitely die. It wasn't some sort of a thing going on in her head, because the ambulance drivers that took her to the hospital actually came to visit her in hospital as well, and they actually said that she died twice on the way to hospital. So obviously something was going on there. That it wasn't just a chemical reaction in her brain. But we do get this theory, don't we?
Yes.
But okay. I mean, as far as ufology goes, have you got any sort of favourite cases that may relate to your own experiences?
Well, yes. In the second book, Silent Whispers, The Power Within, that is where it's more so about extraterrestrials than the government. There's some government stuff in there, but more so the extraterrestrials. And on our first trip, for that book, we went out to Mount Blanca, which is here in Colorado. And we didn't know why we were going. We were just told this is where you need to go. We didn't really encounter any children, maybe one, but that wasn't the purpose of the trip. The purpose that we later learned of the trip was to make contact with these female extraterrestrials. And how they did it, the female ones, they placed a symbol on my car. So Mount Blanca is a high desert, lots of dirt, very desert area. And we were just driving around, not knowing really where we were going. And we ended up at this really small cemetery, old small cemetery, and just got out and walked around. There were all three of us, but two of us got out and walked around for maybe 5, 6, 7 minutes, while the third one, Tina, she stayed in the car just pulling thistles out of her shoes. And when we came back to the car and we got in to leave, I noticed a perfect symbol was placed on the driver's side in the dust on my window. That symbol is the picture on book 1, Silent Whispers, What One Thinks is Crazy, Another Knows is True. That's the symbol they placed on my car. And we didn't, of course, know what it was, how it got there. We were alone. There was not a single soul around us, and that symbol magically appeared perfectly. It was like a stamp, like someone came up with this huge stamp in the dust. In a matter of minutes from walking away, when Tina was still in the car anyway and she didn't see anything. So they first made contact there. We later learned it was from the female ones. On a different trip to Wyoming, we were in a hotel room and Andrea had just finished taking her shower and she's yelling at us to come in the bathroom. So I go in there and the whole room is full of steam from her hot shower. They had placed the same exact symbol, but 9 of them. There was a glass wall between the sink and the toilet, and it was all steamed up from the shower, and they had placed 9 perfectly stamped symbols on that wall. We took a picture. So that was really, really cool.
Wow. Are those pictures in the book?
The original symbol that was on my car is the front cover of the first book, and then the symbol on the glass. At one point, I had put that picture on my blog, silentwhispersbook.com. I have some other pictures there. Our final trip was out to Arizona, I think, off the top of my head. It's a ranch. Can't remember the name of the ranch, but it's well known to be, has paranormal stuff, interdimensional stuff, used to be owned by a stuntman who worked in Hollywood back in the 50s or so. Well, at some point, I can't remember which decade, he bought this ranch and it's become essentially unusable. And there's different stories of different things that happened when it was fully functional. His wife had a lot of different stories. They're both now deceased. But the ranch was used at some point for a couple of commercials, and I think a TV show. But I guess various things happened. When we were out there, it was super creepy, super, super creepy. And we were walking towards where these 2 abandoned buildings were, where these 2 abandoned buildings were. And I just took a couple of pictures. I didn't see anything. I could feel something. I could feel something super creepy, but I didn't see anything. So I took a couple of pictures and then we wanted to get out of there. Now there were a lot of children around that area who needed help in crossing over. I will say that. But later, back at the house we were renting for a few nights, I was looking at the picture, still not seeing anything. And I sent it to my husband saying, oh yeah, here's one of the buildings on the ranch. And he said, I see something in the window. And I thought he was joking with me because that's just who he is. But I looked at the picture and I zoomed in, and sure enough, there is a gray standing in the window staring at me. And I knew something was there. I could feel like these eyes burning into my back as I was walking out. I even told Andrea, who was walking with me, I said, I feel like someone's burning into my back. It feels so creepy. And there's a gray right there in the picture in the window. That is also on my blog.
Wow. We
went back the next day and took another picture of this very same window, and nothing's there. Nothing. And you can see, both pictures are posted on my blog. You can see it's the same window, but you don't see the gray in the second picture. But there's another picture I took. There's a footprint, a set of footprints behind one of the abandoned buildings, and they're not human. They don't look like any animal I've ever seen, and there's only 2 footprints. There's nothing walking to the footprints. This is in the sand. There's nothing walking to the footprints, and there's no footprints walking away. It's just 2 footprints, and I can't identify them. That picture's also on the blog. That was probably the coolest trip I think we've ever been on.
I'll put a link to your blog on your Paranormal Dimensions page as well, if anyone wants to see things like that. It looks interesting. So, in the areas that you've been, obviously there was a lot of Indian land in the past and still today even. Did you have any dealings with the Native American children that have passed over?
When we went to Dulce, which is right on the border of Colorado and New Mexico, that is a very small town, very, very small town. And it's, there's some Native American land right around it. We encountered a couple of, Native American teenagers, just non-physical, but they were not in pain. They were just there. They were not showing any type of trauma. They were just looking at me like, why are you here? We did not encounter that so much in Wyoming when we went real close to a Native American reservation. I did not encounter that.
I just wonder if they would have a trust issue as well, seeing as you sort of like a white Americans. You see what I'm getting at? Yeah.
Just the 2 that I encountered near Dulce, they're just looking at me like, yeah, why is this white woman in my area kind of thing, but no trauma or anything that I could feel from them.
You mentioned this symbol that was on your car and on the shower window. Do you think there's a link with crop circles and things that we get all over the world?
It could be something like that. It almost looks like a map. A map of what? I wouldn't know, but I've never asked. But yeah, it kind of looks like what a crop circle could look like.
Oh, we know that quite a lot of crop circles are faked, but I don't believe all of them are faked.
Right.
I don't know how you feel about that, but
yeah, I would say there's definitely some fake ones out there.
Yeah.
There's always going to be people who want to, pull you in a different direction.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that they're found all over the world, so there's got to be a lot of clever people faking them all over the place, especially in South America. Some of the old ones, like we see on Ancient Aliens, etc.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with crop circles, but I do know that some are real and some aren't.
Yeah, I mean, your friends that you travel with, are they as psychic as you? Do you call it psychic?
They're not. Andrea is my friend, and she's not a medium. She's not psychic. She's a business owner. Lives in New York, right outside New York City. She's interested in all of this, and she's a good friend, but she's not a medium. She does have good intuition, and sometimes she sees energy, and so it was wonderful having her on the trip. And then Tina, my aunt, she is a medium, but she's not a practicing medium, so to speak. She has the gene, she has the genetics, but she's not practicing, not like I am. She's a college professor. So, but both of them can feel intuitively, and they can see energy here and there. They can see when things are moving, and they can, if I'm looking to the west, they might see something to the east and then redirect me, so I'm paying more attention to where an energy might be.
Or would you ever feel the need that you should have male company with you? Or do you ever feel in that sort of danger?
No, we never felt in danger. There was one time, we were in New Mexico, Albuquerque, I believe. It was towards the end of the first book. I think that might have been the last trip in the first book. And we had rented a little casita for a few nights, and it was our final day. And we were tired, we were taking a nap, and we heard someone walk right in. There was 2 doors, a front door and then a back door, like a back patio door. And this person wearing heels, like heeled boots, came walking right in, walked around, and then walked right out. And we were told that it was a military person doing it on purpose to cause fear.
Oh.
But we heard the person walking around as we were waking up from our nap, but we didn't see the person. I only saw her shadow as she took off to the left after she went out the back door.
Yeah, a bit scary though, isn't it? But, you mentioned shadows. I mean, do you have any dealings with shadow people that we hear about?
I'm not exactly sure what a shadow person is.
No, I'm not either, but I don't think anyone is really, but we do hear about shadow people, and I don't know if they're actually interdimensional creatures or some kind of something that's not passed over. So I just wonder if you had any outlook on that.
I'm not sure I would have to look up what a shadow person is to know, but I have encountered plenty of the CIA trained people to do remote viewing. That's what they call it, remote viewing. And that is essentially where they project their non-physical part of them, their mental body. They project a part of them in order to observe. Well, they can also communicate. And so I did encounter plenty of them, military guys, or government guys, whatever, doing their remote viewing. And they would tell us to stop plenty of times, but I don't think they would be considered shadow people.
I see. Now, you mentioned about the CIA again. Have you ever spoken to Solaris Blue Raven?
I'm not familiar with that name, so no.
Oh, right, because she was actually engaged on the CIA programs. I just wondered if you may have come across her at all. You know, because she did like remote viewing and everything. But she does actually talk a lot about it. She's been on my show a couple of times, and she's got a show of her own. I think you'd be interested in talking to her actually. In fact,
so she was a part of the CIA.
Well, I think she was enrolled by the CIA for. In fact, I will, if you'll allow me, I will actually pass your name on to her, and I think you might like to go on her show. I'm sure she'd be interested in having you on. But,
that sounds wonderful.
Yeah, so I will actually introduce you to her. It's she's a fascinating person to talk to, much as yourself. You know, it's.
She does sound fascinating. Yeah, I would be interested. I
mean, she talks very, very fast, and how she actually gets all those words out and they all make sense, I don't know. But trying to keep up with her is really, it's really quite difficult. You'll know what I mean when you speak to her, or if you speak to her. There was actually the Whitley Strieber stories years ago. Do you have any sort of insight into those compared to your own stories?
I know of him. You know, I've heard of his name, obviously, but I have not read his books. I've seen the one of the movies that was made upon his book, but I don't know him personally or about him personally.
So you haven't actually come across him at all. How about Travis Walton?
No.
No, you're not bumped into these people at all. Okay, well, that's just fair enough. Just wondered if you have. So
I'm just a small town girl.
no, I mean, they do get around. I don't know if you ever go to conferences and etc. Do you speak at conferences?
No, I've never spoken at conferences on this type of thing, no.
Oh, right. Oh, maybe that's a direction you should sort of look into.
I wouldn't even know where to begin.
Right. I imagine on Facebook, probably something like that. Could you tell us a bit about your own spiritual guides?
My guides, I have 4, and they're always helpful. Sometimes, since I'm a medium, I can hear them and communicate directly with them. Whereas people will come to me for an appointment for me to communicate with their guides. But, no, my guides are wonderful. They're strong. A couple of them are very tall. And, they offered me advice and guidance, and sometimes when I need it, they slap me.
I mean, do we keep our own spirit guides all the time, or do they change?
It's, both. So, everyone has guides, and everyone has what would be called higher guides. That doesn't mean that they're better than other guides. It just means that they're with you the longest. And you will have guides that will be with you almost always. I would gather there's always an exception, but for the most part, your guides will be with you from birth to your physical death and then help you transition upon physical death. And then you can also have temporary guides who come in to assist with a specific purpose based on a soul request. So it's always your soul that's making these requests for your guides to offer assistance. It's never the conscious mind. And you typically choose your guides prior to birth as a conscious individual, knowing your parents, the culture, the time frame, your genetics, your soul pathway. All of that information's known, and based on that, your soul brings in these guides, so to speak, and then they remain with you. You typically have, in my experience, a history with your guides. That where they've known you before. They know your soul, not that they've known you in this life, but they've known you as a soul. They've experienced relationships with you on some level.
I mean, like, such as myself, I'm not clairvoyant. Well, I guess we've all got a little bit in us, but do our spirit guides talk to us, maybe when we're asleep? I mean, do we converse with them unbeknown to our own physical bodies?
Yes, our guides will always be working with us and guiding us and assisting us. What they won't do is just tell you what to do. They won't save you, and they won't stop you from making a painful choice. They will warn you. They'll talk with you about this choice is going to bring pain, but they're never going to intervene in that choice. That's not their purpose. They would not be a true guide if they did, because that would make them controlling. But they will always be communicating, whether it's through dreams, talking with you in your sleep. You can also have conversations with them unconsciously when you're fully awake. So they're talking with you, you hear it unconsciously, you can respond back unconsciously. And then how that can manifest consciously is you could later have this idea, oh, I should do that, or this is how I can resolve that problem. Oh, why didn't I think about that? So that can be the result of advice that your guides just gave you, or it can also be your intuition, and it can be a combination of both. Also, you can have dreams reflecting a conversation that you've had with your guides as well. So there's always different ways that they're attempting to work with you.
So whenever I make a decision in the future, I might know if it's me making that decision or a suggestion from the other side as the way I should go. Because
Exactly.
that kind of makes me wonder sometimes about, because like I say, if we've got guys talking to us all the time, are we actually making our own decisions or having things suggested to us?
Well, at least with your guides, when they make a suggestion, it's going to be for your higher good.
Yeah.
I can't say that's true for any non-physical. And there's a lot of non-physicals out there who are manipulative. There can be non-physicals who pretend to be a guide. And then they're just doing that to control you for whatever reason. So, yeah, a true guide is going to offer a suggestion for your higher good. And then that is always up to you whether you're going to follow it or not. In my book, my first book, Silent Whispers, book 1, I was still in the process of writing it. And I was standing in the kitchen thinking, who the hell's going to believe all this? This is so crazy. Who is going to believe this information? And I heard right then, well, what one thinks is crazy, another knows is true. And that was one of my guides. And I thought, oh, hot damn, that is a great title. And then I put that title in, but that didn't even come from me.
Yeah. I think anyone who writes a book about ghosts or UFOs or any type of paranormal thing, they must go through everyone's mind. Well, is anyone going to believe all this? But of course, you're talking to a certain type of audience that will buy that book, and although they may criticise it, there's going to be many people that have had the same type of experiences.
Exactly.
I mean, do you feel that our lives are on a predestined course? And by that I mean, there's an end position that we should reach. And we kind of may wander off of a path that, along the way somewhere, but we do end up at that predestined course, target, if you like.
Yes, every soul has a purpose. Every person has a purpose. Now, for some, their purpose is to heal trauma. For some, their purpose is to uncover different abilities. Everyone has a different purpose, and sometimes people get caught up in their mind that they need to have this special purpose. But sometimes a person's purpose is to empower themselves for the first time ever. And that's a strong purpose. But everyone has a purpose in life. The reason they're here, the reason they're alive, that they've chosen to be in the physical. No one's here by happenstance. No one is here to be a victim. We're all here to learn something. Whether it's to uncover an ability, whether it's to assist other souls, to assist family. Sometimes a person's here to wake up another family member. So everyone has a purpose.
Because I find that some kind of synchronicity sets into life. Sometimes it seems like things were meant to happen. Things all fall into place at the right time, kind of thing. I know in my life it's happened quite a few times.
Yes, because when you are on your pathway, or any pathway, we're all on a pathway. It's just sometimes we veer off a little bit and then we need to get realigned again. But a lot of times things will happen that seem like it's just amazing how this happened. But it's not so much that it's amazing, it's the fact that you were listening to guidance and intuition and your own soul, and then things that needed to happen start lining up because you're moving in that direction and you're going straight instead of left. So we've all these different realities we can experience and all these different pathways we can experience. And sometimes people, they decide, well, this isn't working for me. I'm going to go left instead of right. But they should have kept going right because that's where things would have changed. And that's where guides come in to help you understand that.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's people out there, probably a lot of people go through really tough times. And I guess they're here maybe to learn that lesson for some reason. You know, I know we all go through some tough times. I know you have, but I guess we're all here too. You know, for a lesson of some kind. Is that what you would say?
We're all here to learn something, and does it need to be painful? No. But a lot of people choose pain as a part of their life for whatever reason. That doesn't make them wrong. It's just really giving yourself permission to reach out for assistance. All of us are on a path to experience joy, to experience passion, to experience so much, that there's so much more in life to experience than right now, than what we see out the window and what we see in politics and COVID and all of that. Even before COVID, everything that's been going on, there's much more to life to experience than just that. Yeah,
and I reckon with your books, you hope that people will see some kind of enlightenment towards that.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Okay, well, now, you've got a website. Is it just called Tami Urbanek?
Tami Urbanek. My website is empowermentthroughhealing.org for my work. And then my book blog website is silentwhispersbook.com.
Right. Okay, that's good. I shall put some links on the page as well for that. Well, Tami, it's been a great pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for sparing the time. I know you've got a busy few days going ahead of you. And thank you for sparing the time to come on to talk to me.
Thank you so much.
It's been a great pleasure, and I hope everyone enjoyed that. I certainly did. Anyway, thank you, Tami, and I hope we speak again.
Thank you so much.
You take care of yourself. There you go. Thank you. Bye-bye. You've been listening to Paranormal Dimensions on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. I'm David Young. Hope you'll join us again next week.
Paranormal Dimensions is as bright and powerful as our celestial star, the sun. And although it's expending thousands of pounds of energy every minute of the day, have no fear. There's plenty left.
Paranormal Dimensions is a regular feature on Mondays on the Paranormal UK Radio Network.